into the brain. I think there's been a rape up there.
Seedy little message, seedy little jokes.
You're a cop. But women are dirty. And I'm boring myself talking about it.
Big 3-0. That's the worst one, innit? Oh, I know what you're thinking. My youth's over. I remember when I was 30, like you, I was going, oh, I'm in a rubbish job, my life's rubbish, nothing good ever happens to me, when will it change? But, you know, things do change. And it could be worse. There's a neighbour of mine, Kelvin, he's 32, and he's still making podcasts.
Brilliant. Okay, hello and welcome to the third episode of Wernham Blogg, a podcast dedicated to discussing and reviewing The Office, the UK edition. Here with me we have this Cuban leader who's been in place since 1959, it's Seth.
Hello.
And you won't catch him out on Dostoevsky because he reads a book a week, it's Danny.
Sure do.
And our resident professor in charge of watching Countdown all day is Jack.
I think he's been on the worky backy.
Bloody students.
Bloody students. So, yeah, we're here to talk about the third episode. We've currently, we've just released the first episode this weekend, and we've had some amazing feedback from everybody, so thank you all for listening so far. So, let's kick this off then. I mean, the episode is a little bit different from the other episodes, obviously, we've had so far. They've been largely introduction episodes, and this is the first time, really, we take everybody out of the office and start to see a different side to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're kind of into it now. We got the first two episodes out of the way. We've there was a bit of repetition there in terms of form, like, you know, as we mentioned in episode 2, the first two episodes, they both start with Brent introducing someone to the office. You know, we're treading over the same ground, so we've now definitely got the dynamics, we've got the characters. So now, episode 3, as with most TV shows, we can just start having some fun with it, and we can start riffing. And like you said, we go outside the office.
So you've never worked in an office, Jack? I've never worked in an office either, and James and Danny, both of you two have, right?
Correct.
I'm wondering if it's slightly different experience watching it with a more specific frame of reference, i.e. that's where you work. Because I kind of imagine what office life is like. I don't know if you guys find it, you know, a bit closer to home because you actually work in an office.
Well, what you've got to remember is, when I originally watched The Office back in 2001, I was only 17, so I had not worked in an office by then. So I think every time I've worked in an office, I've always sort of seen it through that lens.
Right, yeah.
So it's the chicken and the egg.
Yes, I'm almost looking for the David Brentness.
Yeah,
I'm looking for the dreariness and the sloughness and the David Brentness.
That's really
I mean, I do that at work. I don't work in an office, but I'm the closest to an office environment I've ever been in. I have to do some work in an office, and I instantly go into like Brent mode as soon as I have to do any admin or anything like that.
Because we're all in all in our 30s.
It's the fact.
So we're all like 32. So yeah, when in 2001,
Danny's older than me.
I'm old. I'm 34.
Oh, there you go. So
Grand-
Dan,
Grandad.
so I was 15 when the office started.
I was
15,
17.
and you were 17.
Yeah, we were 15.
So yeah,
me, you and James, I guess.
Yeah, so we were still at that age when we hadn't kind of had this experience yet, but we knew it was coming. It was kind of especially you, Danny, would have been barreling towards you, like you would have known at 17.
Couldn't wait.
If this is going to be it, and when Brent's talking to Tim about my youth's over, my life's over.
And I remember watching it with my dad, and us both laughing when he said stuff gets better. But it was a bit of a dark laugh. It's like as if my dad's saying, "Yeah, this is what my life's like, and it's what yours will be like too."
Well, that's what's interesting about this episode.
Yeah.
But that's what's interesting about this episode, because that's what this episode really brings, that theme of the show to the forefront, and I think that's kind of what elevates. Eventually, that's what elevates this sitcom, The Office, above lots of other sitcoms where it's not just about the cringe humour. There's actually a kind of a theme that really hit the zeitgeist at the time of this kind of people trapped in jobs they don't want to do. People kind of really, I mean, especially at the turn of the millennium, I remember in like 99, 2000, there was lots of films and TV shows really dealing with what are we doing with our lives? Like, is this all we have? Like, I'm thinking of like American Beauty and The Sopranos, where it's these kind of, I mean, and they were kind of...
There was a theme of existentialism, right, in a lot of these programs, and The Office, I think, deals with that in its way.
Yeah, exactly.
Albeit quite subtly.
Yeah, because we had the real consumerism of the 80s, where like it was just everyone was all about like work in an office, make your money. Yeah, and in the 90s it was a bit
do loads of coke. Yeah,
and in the 90s it was a bit laissez-faire, like just get on with it. Like it was a bit of the come down from the 80s. And as we got to the end of the 90s and the beginning of the 2000s, everyone was like, what have you been doing for 20 years? Like, why are we doing this? Like,
What does this all mean?
What does this all mean?
Like,
What's the point of this? Yeah, I'm just working to live or living to work kind of thing. And I think that really...
And I guess that's why,
With
that's why it hit the zeitgeist at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Theme.
Especially with the character of Tim, who really comes into the forefront in this episode quiz. Like, it's a very Tim-centric episode, and that theme really is brought out through exploring Tim a bit closer in this episode.
And of course,
he's the classic kind of existentially tortured character, Tim, isn't he? He's wondering what his purpose is and all this, and that facial expression just says that. It just says, like, what am I doing with my life? What is this all about?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's so many of those good Tim faces in this episode. Actually, we talked
Yeah,
about it
there's loads.
a couple of weeks ago.
Classic one.
Yeah.
We talked about it a few weeks ago when it was like he's giving you the in to let you know when to laugh. But I think it kind of goes beyond that on this point when it is literally a cry for help. I think there's one moment when Finchy comes in and he's doing all this shtick with David initially and being quite rude and objectionable to David, and basically Tim just looks at the camera and is like, "Are you getting this? Are you actually recording? Yeah, this is my life.
Are you seeing this?
Yeah.
You see what I'm seeing? What I deal with every day. You know, like,
But also, I think the other thing about this episode is we've kind of gotten a perception of David just by watching the first two in isolation, and you kind of think he's actually a bit of a knob. But then when you see this episode, you realise, by comparison to Finchy's a real prick. David goes from being the twat to actually being the underdog here. This is
you
the
start
guy
to empathise with him a bit more.
Exactly.
You start to get to the heart of Brent a bit more in this episode.
And
you
you
start
start
to feel more connected to him,
Yeah, you start to realise how actually kind of harmless it is.
Yeah.
Like, whereas Finchy comes along, just an absolute bully.
Well, absolutely. Bully's the right word. He's a nasty piece of work, Finchy, in this episode.
and he's like that from the second he walks in.
Yeah.
It
And
starts straight
to be
away.
honest, we knew he was like that from the moment we heard about it.
Yeah, there was never going to be anything else.
There's
was there?
been little kind of drops about Finchy in the first two episodes, and you kind of just know that if and when he turns up, he's just going to be this.
He's even worse. He's even worse
yeah.
than you imagine, isn't he?
David's ego got in the way last time, but actually Finchy is basically the reason for David's problems in the last episode. Do you know what I mean? It's all down to Finchy making that picture, sending it out amongst his staff, and sort of David ending up basically making such a tit of himself in front of his manager.
But
So
you
we
might have
didn't know.
thought he might have been some sort of ironic character or something, like, but actually he's just plain nasty. He's the only character in the office, Finchy, I believe, who's plain nasty through and through.
You got with it, yeah? Right.
It's Tim's birthday today,
Yes.
and he's sitting there. He's the only one in the office. He's come in super early because his mum's decided to wake him up on his birthday. So, as if we didn't feel badly enough for him already, he's been woken up early on his birthday, on his 30th birthday, no lie-in, and he's forced to go into the office on his own.
What you doing in so early? Shit the bed.
But yes, the headline here is that we start to find out a little bit more about Tim's personal life, and actually in the rest of the episode we find out a bit more about Brent's personal life as well, and Dawn. I mean, it's episode 3 now, and now we're finding out more about the characters, and we find out that Tim is still living with his parents, 30 years old, still living with his parents, which now in 2018 isn't that much of a...
No,
There's still a stigma in England. There is still a stigma about living with your parents when you're older.
Definitely would have been back in 2001 before the market crash. We were just coming out of the September 11th hadn't happened. We were coming out of the boom of the 90s. There was no reason why a employed man in his 30s like Tim shouldn't have been living, have a flat or something.
Or Kelvin.
Yeah.
Or Kelvin. Yeah.
There's a neighbour of mine, Calvin. He's 32 and he still lives with his parents.
I live with my parents.
Cherish him, really.
So
In
Tim
those
was
days-
unusual in living at home in 30, perhaps, at that time.
But you say that though, it speaks to
Well-
his ambitions, and it almost reflects his career as well. The fact that he's not got the gumption to get up and move out is the same reason he's not got the gumption to get up and leave the job and find something he wants to do, because he's worried about rolling a 1.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
He's kind of stoic, and he's realistic, but he's apathetic about his own life as well, to a degree where he's just got stuck. A lot of the characters don't really know where to go with their lives next, especially apparent between, Dawn and Tim. They don't know what to do. They clearly have deep affection for each other. She's in the wrong relationship. He's just fed up and living at home.
Dawn, I'm fed up.
Dawn, I'm fed up, yeah. Brent has got this relationship with this Chris Finch character who bullies him, but because he shows him some kind of like friendship and he offers him something, this one half of this comedy duo, again, he's searching for meaning. He's searching for some meaning for his life. Who am I? Maybe I'm a great comedian. Maybe this guy's my foil, my other half. Yet he's actually just a horrible bully, and it exposes the true level of vulnerability in Brent, I believe.
Well, the thing about Finchy is that he does have confidence. Like, that's what he has. And I
Yes.
think that's what Brent, what appeals to Brent. Like, he sees this guy, he thinks, I wish I had the confidence that guy has. Finchy is the man he wants to be. Finchy's like a rock star to him. So he looks up at Finchy. And it's just like, lots...
Such low self-esteem.
That's what it is, and it goes back to that school. A lot of The Office brings up which it relates to real life,
What it was
brings
like,
up
yeah.
schoolyard dynamics. They last throughout the whole of your life, and you must have seen in school. There's these kids that, no matter how mercilessly they're bullied, will still try and impress the bullies because they see them as the alphas.
Yeah.
That's what Brent
And
does.
they're waiting for the day where Finch kind of takes Brent under his wing.
Yeah.
He wants it to be like that, you know.
The sad
He
thing
wants
is that Brent is a 40-year-old man who doesn't need to do that. He's
Yeah.
the boss. He doesn't need to subjugate himself to Finchy, but he doesn't realise that because he sees Finchy as the confident one who can tell jokes better than him. He thinks that Finchy has the ultimate power. And Brent spends the whole episode, well, the first half of this episode, like excitedly building up Finchy, like really, really just excited to kind of see him come in. You know, he's rushing around the office telling everyone that Finchy's arriving, Finchy's coming, as if they care.
Yeah,
as if they care. And he's utterly distracted. He's dropped all his responsibilities, even to the point where when Dawn says it's Tim's birthday, he just kind of goes, "Oh yeah."
but he's
Yeah,
He
worried.
doesn't even say, "Oh, happy birthday."
Well, we'll come
Sorry,
on to that
mate.
because
He's just
the next scene is actually when Brent is doing his introduction, really, his first sort of conversational piece to the camera in this episode, and he is basically talking about Finchy's arrival, and he can't believe his luck. He's so excited that the cameras are finally going to get to meet Finchy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's like,
us together.
and as
you know.
on cue, the phone rings. Is it the phone rings, or does he ring him? I can't
He
remember.
rings him and
he
makes
rings
sure
him.
he's coming
Yeah,
at
yeah.
7, and he tells him the joke, doesn't he?
What's black and slides down Nelson's column? Don't know. Winnie Mandela? Oh yeah, that's good. No, it's not. It's not racist. I know. Yeah, I thought you were the column because and she is black, and she probably actually is married. It's not even live. Yeah, 7. See ya. Bye.
And this is absolutely brilliant because we only see Brent's side of the conversation.
Yeah.
We haven't met Finch yet. We don't hear him on the phone. So we just see Ricky Gervais on one end of the phone, kind of going through,
And it's so
hearing
good.
the joke,
It's
not
so good.
understanding the joke, but telling the joke back so that we know exactly what joke he's doing, and as an audience. And then kind of all of a sudden Brent, knowing that the cameras are there, is like, "Oh my god, are we going to get in trouble? Is this libelous?" No, it's not even libelous. All right, see you later. Do you know? So Gervais in this kind of like 15 seconds goes through this whole gamut of emotions and of different kind of. Brent's mind is constantly ticking because he knows the camera's right in front of him, and he knows that it's only going to be on him if he says anything libelous or offensive.
And he's got wild eyes, doesn't he? While he's talking about it, like, he's just looking at us. Shit.
I mean, I'm going to probably go on about this over and over during these episodes, but brilliant performance by Brent.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring that up if you didn't.
That's where he's at his best, just with a phone and facial expressions.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, he conveys so much through that.
Yeah.
Actually, he goes on then to say about how him and Finchy, they've got this amazing back and forth. They're like Morecambe and Wise when they get together. But there are some things that he'll never laugh at, like the handicapped. And this
Can I ask you guys a question about that scene? You know when he says we're like Morecambe and Wise, there's no straight man, so there's no dead wood.
Yeah.
I must admit, for the risk of sounding a bit stupid, I don't quite get that joke. What's he saying?
No. Well, he's actually showing here that he really doesn't understand comedy.
Exactly.
Because actually,
so I'm not supposed to get it.
in comedy, there has to be dead. Normally, the dynamic is there has to be a dead wood. There has to be a straight character. Like think of the Naked Gun films. Leslie Nielsen completely plays it straight, doesn't he? He doesn't get that it's funny. He's not just laughing.
Tim's the Deadwood, normally.
Yeah.
But the fact that he sees the straight man as being dead wood, like, oh, no one wants to be the straight man, that's the boring bit.
Like,
no
one even needs that.
Yeah.
They're two wacky characters.
So this whole episode is kind of like, this really focuses on Brent's philosophy of comedy, and it just shows, like Danny said, he doesn't know anything about comedy. He just doesn't understand it.
It becomes apparent he doesn't know much about anything in this episode. Doesn't he? Everything he says, he's actually just being found out and found
Certainly
out.
not
and
in the
found
quiz.
Yeah, well,
No wonder the place is going down the plan. It's a bloody waste of space.
But this is again, this talking head with Brent is another one of his over literal analogies. You know what I mean? We talked about it before, but when he goes on and on and on, and he finds himself sort of scrambling to get out of this analogy. He says, you know, what is it? He says, at least a little disabled fella is able-minded.
And then he realises that's not quite right.
Yeah.
So he has to.
That's not quite PC.
It's
either.
difficult to tell with the weird shell ones.
Yeah, so he comes up with that.
But he already cocks it up by just describing him as handicapped rather than disabled, which
handicaps.
in itself is an un-PC term.
The plural, he says the handicaps.
Handicaps.
Yeah.
He's just got no idea, especially in 2001.
He's got no idea.
He's got no idea of what's PC, what's not.
He's well-meaning though, really.
He is well-meaning.
He's woefully misguided.
You get the
and that
impression,
illustrates the difference, the gaping void between him and Finchy in this episode. A genuinely nasty person and someone who's well-meaning but gets it wrong.
If it was Finchy in Brent's position and they let Finchy do a talking head, he wouldn't even worry about being on PC. He would just go straight for it. Brent's at least thinking about it. He's trying.
Fray Bentos.
Back out in the office, and Dawn comes in, and actually she's rather sweet. He's the only person that gives Tim a card. Seems like throughout this episode, she's really the only one that cares about his birthday. Did anybody else notice Dawn's hair in this episode?
No.
She's got plaits.
Oh, okay.
Especially for Tim's birthday.
Do you think it's especially for Tim's
I think
birthday?
so,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
Well,
sweet.
it's the only episode.
do you think she's made the effort?
I think so. It's the only
I reckon
episode.
she probably has.
Yeah, probably.
Do you think anyone else in Tim's life has made the effort for his birthday?
Well,
do
his
you
mum
think she's
bought
a solitary person?
His mum bought him Hat
Okay.
FM, to be fair, and I know he starts off taking the piss out of Hat FM, but by the end, that's the one thing he doesn't want anyone to break it.
That's all he's got left.
That's all he's got. That's the only good thing that's happened to him that whole day, isn't
I
it?
don't throw Hat FM. 'Cause
How
it's
bad is
radio
that?
as well.
At the beginning, he's taking the piss out of the hat, but by the end of the day, it realises that actually that's the best thing that's happened to him all day.
Well, it's it's the office in a nutshell, isn't it? At the beginning of the day, but anything is possible.
Yeah,
I got
no,
Hat
it's
FM,
true.
but it can only go up from here because Hat FM is shite. And then at the end of the day, it's like I got Hat FM, though. That's good.
And there's a really sweet scene where you see Dawn wearing Hat FM sitting at reception, just in the credits, rolling at the end. It just sort of shows that she would probably do that, like, oh, I'll wear your silly hat, Tim. You know, like the only person who kind of really cares.
There's a really, like, while we're on the subject of Dawn, there's a brilliant scene where Lee comes into the office and he's got this huge present, and obviously Dawn goes over to say, oh, can you get him over? And they gives him this huge present, and sort of Tim's are made up about it. Sits down, it's a huge inflatable cock. And the thing I love about this one is Lee. He looks in his element because this is probably about as intellectual as Lee's comedy gets.
Yeah, this is the kind of
Lee's
presentation he
idea.
would have bought for the lads in the warehouse.
This is Lee's idea, and as soon as he opens it, Lee's comment is, "You can sit on that if you like," and that's a rehearsed joke.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? You can tell he's been thinking about that.
Yeah, he's been waiting to say that.
Yeah. He's told Taffy he's going to go upstairs and tell Tim to sit on this inflatable.
But this
one.
just shows the absolute gulf between Lee and Tim, because Lee's probably thinking, right, if I was in the warehouse, I'd give these guys an inflatable cock. I'd say, you can sit on that if you like, and we'd be laughing about it all day.
Yeah.
Whereas it doesn't really, it completely hits a dead wall with Tim and with Dawn, because like it's just not their kind of humour. It's not what they'd be laughing about.
But Dawn, I noticed, did appear to collude with Lee in buying the inflatable cock. Like they seem to have bought that gift together.
I reckon,
but with different motives.
Yeah.
Lee has brought it to slightly undermine Tim. And be like,
or I think Tim, or I think Lee just thinks this is a hilarious
That'll make him look stupid.
And
Dawn's just like, Tim's going to hate this, but I'm just going to go along with it because this is going to be ironically hilarious when he sees it.
Yeah. So you could almost say that Tim and Dawn are almost laughing at Lee there, and Lee's almost trying to undermine Tim a bit.
Exactly.
So there's a weight of intellect behind their comedy, and there just isn't with Lee.
Oh, with Lee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Lee's the deadwood if anyone is. So. And then David just comes in and the whole thing falls completely flat, doesn't it? When he starts doing his exterminate bits.
I love it. And he comes over and he's just like a machine gun of just jokes. As soon as he can think of anything. Oh, was he doing exterminate, and then...
But if you compare this Brent, where, I mean, he's telling lame jokes, but he's firing them off, to his credit, they're coming really quick to him. If you compare that to the Brent when he's with Finchy and he's kind of flustered and because he's intimidated by Finchy, that goes to show, I mean, just... how when he's making jokes, like, when he's in his element, he can come out of them quick, even if they are crap.
And the other thing that's really funny about this, and this is a quote I use all the time, if we're doing jokes with something, don't grab it till you got one ready. Slows it down. Because Gareth grabs it and just can't think of anything.
Gareth gets it and he's flustered. Like, and to say there's kind of shades of Finchy and Brent, but Brent is the Finchy and Gareth's the Brent.
That's a really good
he's flustered, he's intimidated, he doesn't know what to do because he's seen Brent kind of like firing him off really kind of like a rapid fire. And so Gareth grabs the cock, doesn't know what to do, gets flustered, and then Brent takes it back. Like, don't take it unless you got one ready. Slows it down.
Oh, that's great. So after Dawn has given Tim his present, David goes over and has a chat with him. Doesn't really seem interested in his birthday. Just basically is going to talk to him because the camera's on Tim.
Yeah, this is actually a really sad bit.
Go on, what happens in this scene?
Well, David tries to cheer him up by telling him about his neighbour Kelvin, who still lives with his parents and is even older, and then he leads into talking about his parents.
Yeah, who's in a home, and then he says
his
he might as well be dead.
Might as well be dead.
What a thing to say!
He's trying to cheer Tim up, but he puts such a
inadvertently
negative slant on the situation.
Which goes to show, like, so he spends his whole episode trying to justify what a great comedian he is, and yet he can't even cheer Tim up properly with a joke. He just brings down the whole tone of the room and the tone of the show, and he ends up talking about how his dad's in a home and he's got dementia.
Anyway, he is a vegetable now, and that's something we've all got to look forward to. So, happy birthday.
What an uplifting birthday message there.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've got to have an honourable mention for Gareth's impression of a sniper shot here as well.
Yeah,
absolutely superb. If I could have gotten a buzzer out of this for the quiz later on, I would have done. This is so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just does that impression. Good spot. That's where I'd be. As if that makes any difference. Who was it who was up there?
Yeah.
Nobody cared. It was, it's like,
Yeah.
Really
So not only do we find out about Tim living with his parents in this episode, we find out a bit more about Brent's situation at home. Where does he say he's got a brother in this? Do we find out he's got a brother?
No, I don't think so. He just mentions his
so
dad.
He just mentions
doesn't
his
he?
dad. But yeah, so we know that we kind of know what Brent's dealing with outside the office, or avoiding outside the office, which is his dad. His dad with dementia. He's a vegetable in a home. Yeah, so kind of
not a happy home life.
Yeah, and I mean, and obviously Gervais and Merchant as writers kind of get comedy out of this, but it's still there. You still kind of, once you finish the episode, or once you kind of like reflect on the episode, you're like, oh yeah, Brent's dad's a vegetable with dementia in a care home.
And who he's had to rush off to see at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, do you know what I mean? But that seems a bit unrealistic as well. What kind of a care home would phone somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning because the dad's getting a bit flustered about a sniper?
Well, it wasn't 3 o'clock in the morning. It's probably like 11, isn't it?
No, I'm sure he says it's 3 in the morning. I'm sure.
What, when they're still in the middle of the quiz?
No.
No. If he was in the middle of the quiz, he wouldn't be going.
Oh, yes, yeah.
But so that must have been an interesting thing. Imagine David doing that, but. So the next scene is David Brent going around to the rest of the office to sort of pump up some enthusiasm for the quiz.
Yeah.
And he goes over to speak to the finance boards to see if they're all going to be on the same team. And then in the same scene, he talks to Ricky to find out how excited he is about the new quiz. So it turns out this isn't Ricky's first quiz. He's been on Blockbusters. You can see the smile just fade off of David's face as he realises actually this guy might be a bit cleverer than me. He might have something to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the classic Brent, presumably, but you get the impression that he hasn't been to university, so he's kind of presumably got to the level he's at, like worked his way up to being the regional manager of a successful paper merchant without having been to university. So there's that kind of and knowing the kind of person that Brent is, I'm sure he's had kind of like a bit of a hang up about that, a bit of social intimidation about that. So Ricky manifests the kind of people probably that Brent's been intimidated by his whole life, like these kind of just naturally smart, kind of privileged, I get the impression, probably kind of people.
And not only that, he's been on proper quizzes. He's been on
proper quizzes.
He's done the gold runs. He's won some Walkman and some other bits.
He's lived Brent's perfect life.
Exactly.
Just to be on TV for 10 minutes.
He would have loved to have been on Blog.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so funny how Brent tries to sort of undermine it immediately as well. He said, "Were you on it with the 2 or the 1? No, just by yourself." Wow, okay, yeah. It's kind of cheating, isn't it? No, just 1.
Yeah, and that does show like a bit of a. And I know we were saying that. Compared to Finchy, Brent's alright, he's not a bully, but Ricky kind of in this episode brings out the worst in him because he just gets competitive, he gets petulant, he gets a bit pathetic. Yeah, so for this whole first half of the episode, there's kind of like a running. Brent wants to prove himself to Ricky. He wants Ricky to know that he's not only his equal, but like above him.
I think Ricky's irrelevant at this point. He just wants to be on the camera outsmarting him. You know what I mean? If Ricky was just there on his own, I don't think it would be an issue, but he cannot lose face in front of the camera. So after that first encounter, he
can't lose face with Finchy. I think that's crucial there. If Finchy's coming, they always win the quiz.
Yeah, exactly. But this is all before Finchy, so he almost wants to have a story maybe for when Finchy gets here. I outsmarted the college boy kind of thing.
Yeah. And because Ricky has defeated him, when Finchy does arrive, Brent has to kind of bring along his big brother into the office and say, "Go on, Finchy. Finchy will get you."
The brilliant thing about that is, as soon as Finchy comes in and has his introduction with Ricky and all the rest of the guys, he says, "I heard about your Dostoevsky." Yeah. So obviously, David Brent's had a conversation with him. Yeah,
that's what I mean. Yeah, so he sicks Finchy on him like a dog or like an older brother in the playground kind of thing. It's ridiculous, and Finchy's well up for it because he wants probably not a university guy himself.
No,
he wants any opportunity he can to bring down this young, this kind of young.
But little young gun, and he's Finchy. We see later. I know it's skipping ahead a bit, but we see Finchy's quite threatened by Ricky. He's
definitely.
Because Ricky is who Finchy would really want to be. He's a more sophisticated. He's genuinely smart. Girls like him in it, not because he's sleazy, but because he's
he's just a charming, nice guy. I mean,
charming guy, yeah.
And also
in the
introduction scene with Finchy, when he meets the rest of the guys, he sort of starts slagging off students. And obviously Ricky's not a student. None of them are students.
Well, but he's been a student
recently. But he's not a student. I don't understand.
Hung up on the student.
So what? Everybody that's ever been a student is going to be referred to as a student for the rest of their lives.
But he's just out of university, so he's still probably got that student mindset. And I think it's just it's the whole
assumption. That's the problem.
It's the whole like anti-university thing, which to be fair was probably a lot more prevalent then than it is now because so relatively less people went to uni back in 2001. The expansion of higher education hadn't quite taken its effect yet. So it was more like there was more of a lot of jobs still do have a bit of an anti-education culture.
And without wanting to generalise, Finchy seems to be kind of probably from a working class background, so he's kind of he's probably got this kind of like working class kind of like pull yourself up kind of, you know,
not on my money.
He sees himself as a
self-made man. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
When he comes in, from the moment he comes in, he's immediately bullying Brent.
We've got fat jokes, we've got gay jokes, literally in the first 2 or 3 seconds.
Really,
of him being in there.
It's really heavy with the gay jokes. Really, really heavy. It's just an onslaught of gay jokes when he comes in.
So
yeah, like, as your boyfriend said last night, and he starts making
David Brent is just so happy with it though. He's just all over it. He just can't believe his luck. His best mate's here, and he keeps looking at the camera like, "Oh my god, can you believe this? Look at this! You're just absolute gold."
And then there's that golden bit where everyone's just really unimpressed, and the camera just goes back to him, and he just goes, "Oh, Finchy."
Oh, that's great.
He looks around like,
it's just like,
"Come on, fat lad."
Yeah, that was by Finchy, and then just walks off. I love that scene.
But that's it. I mean, the fact that Finchy says, "Come on, fat lad," and it's like Finchy's the boss. As soon as he walks in,
I'm in charge.
David's no longer the boss. Finchy's the boss. David's now the Gareth, and Gareth is now the what's lower than Gareth? I don't know.
Because
Sheila.
Gareth Sheila.
But imagine if when Finchy wasn't there, Brent did have some semblance of order over the office, and everyone did respect him and look up to him. Finchy coming in like that, like a thunderbolt, going, "Come on, fat lad," or not as queer as David Brent.
Yeah,
that would completely undermine him. Luckily for Finchy, Brent doesn't have any respect anyway in the office, but that would completely undermine him in front of everyone, wouldn't it? And Finchy clearly doesn't care about it. He has no qualms about that at all.
And in fact, I mean, Ricky Gervais did actually basically do the same thing again in Extras with that guy that we used to know from school that came to see him. That seems more or less an exact replica of this one. Yeah.
Well, actually, to be honest with you, I thought you were going to say something else, which is that you can see from the special features and things like Idiot Abroad, Ricky Gervais in real life seems to be a little bit of a Finchy.
He tries
to people like Carl Pilkington, Robin Ince. Have you seen that Extras feature on Extras where he's would be editor Nigel taping Nigel?
Yeah, I have seen
he
that.
finds these kind of weak individuals kind of bullies them a little bit, not to the extent that Finchy does. It seems more reciprocal.
I definitely know what you mean, but I would take issue with the B word only because I think it's in the interests of comedy, and I don't think Ricky Gervais is a bully at all. I think he just it's. There's a warmth between them. Do you know what I mean? Vince is a manipulative user. Do you know what I mean? He's doing it not to have fun. If there was no gains in it for him, he wouldn't be doing it. Do you know what I mean? He's only there to try and take advantage of these people for his own benefit. If David got the sack tomorrow, Finchy would not be interested. As you find out in one of the Christmas specials.
No, he's actually
straight to Neil. Yeah.
It's all about what's in it for him. Right?
Yeah.
But as Ricky Gervais said in the documentary, nothing illustrates the absurdity of men more than a quiz. The quiz is his thing.
That's why this episode's so great.
To show what a great man is, because he can do well on the quiz. He's a boy.
I feel like this is a area of comedy that hadn't really been mined before, like the pub quiz. It's such like a typical British institution, but really, like Danny said, that Gervais said, really brings out the absurdity and and the comedy potential of masculinity and its competitiveness, which is one of the through lines of The Office. So I'm surprised, but I mean, I'm trying to think, did like Men Behaving Badly have like a pub quiz episode?
I don't know.
Yes,
I don't ever remember. When you were saying that, I can't ever think about a pub quiz. But they say, if you want to know what someone's like, look at them, what they're like when they're driving. It's the same thing with look at what they're like when they're quizzing. The real person comes out.
Especially under pressure when they're starting to lose.
It just brings out this kind of this frustration and this.
Bottom did a really good episode on a quiz once. I remember. That was quite fun.
Men Behaving Badly.
Men Behaving Badly. Don't you remember all the questions were about actors getting their kit off?
They did really well at it.
Yeah.
Oh, and Detectorists as well. Detectorists is a great episode.
Okay, so they're actually.
But it's still good. It's still good fodder though.
I take all that back. Yeah, there is a tradition of doing pub quiz episodes in British.
I know what you're saying, James.
Not a whole episode.
Build the theme of how the characters respond to a quiz.
It's perfect for this as well, because not only do you get the quiz and the reactions of the people involved in the quiz, but you get the dynamic of Gareth, who's responsible for writing the quiz.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? How seriously he takes that, and he basically takes a whole day off work to write this quiz.
Well, you can see because there's that scene where Tim and Dawn interrupt him.
Oh, that's great.
And this scene actually introduces I think it's the first instance of one of the great Office running jokes of the army innuendos by Tim to Gareth. Would you give a man a lethal blow?
I can't believe Gareth doesn't pick up on this, by the way.
I can't believe it takes him until the Christmas special. It takes Lee to tell him in the Christmas special, finally.
Even when, in this first instance, Dawn tries to give him an out.
Yeah.
Dawn,
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
though.
Dawn almost gives him a like, "Come on, guy," but then when
but he just won't take it. Yeah,
Still
when-
doesn't
on the
get it,
wacky
yeah, that's
backy.
brilliant.
yeah,
That's great, though,
He
because-
just doesn't see it because he's got so much pride. He doesn't want to.
And then there's that lovely little handshake with Gareth and Tim afterwards.
And he's so utterly earnest about anything to do with the army. You
Yeah,
can't
that's
imagine
what it
him
is,
mucking
that's what it is,
around.
yeah,
But I mean, this is the happiest that we ever see Gareth, by the way, up until this point.
Yeah.
When he thinks he's back in with friends with Lee and Dawn, because actually that's what he really wants, I think.
Well, it's actually interesting. Yeah, now you bring that up, it just suddenly made me think of the difference between Tim and Gareth and Finchy and Brent. Like there's and this episode really highlights it. This is an episode which kind of, even though it's not the main theme of the episode, it brings up a lot about workplace bullying. And to the extent that we've talked about this in the previous episodes, where the pranks between Tim and Gareth, and in the first episode it's a little bit more cruel, and then in the second episode, like, kind of, it eases off a little bit and it's not so cruel. But there is a difference between Tim teasing or pranking or winding up Gareth and what Finchy does with Brent. Like, it's not cruel. It's more.
No, there's heart to it. There's
There's
a bit of affection underlying.
And Tim kind of,
she's just cruel.
And Tim kind of, I guess, would kind of leave the door open a little bit for Gareth to reciprocate if Gareth could. But
Definitely.
Gareth
he would
can't,
allow
he's not
that.
the
He would allow
Yeah.
to give some back. Yeah, he would even want him to. I think he would like it if Gareth was able to, but
I'm sure Tim would love to have someone working opposite him who was on his wavelength.
Absolutely, yeah. He's not looking.
It's just that Gareth hasn't got that, and maybe Tim's trying to train him up so that he can.
Absolutely, yeah. Tim's not looking for a victim like Finchy is. He's looking for someone who can bounce off and have a bit of a laugh with. Really, that's why he gravitates to Dawn.
Yeah, exactly, precisely.
It's interesting as we're talking about Lee and Dawn and Tim. There's quite a bit of development between Lee and Tim in this episode. In episode 2, we spoke about how Lee perhaps doesn't see Tim as much of a threat. But then in this episode, there's this scene where they're sitting around.
They're having I guess it's a coffee break.
That's a brilliant scene.
Yeah. And then what? Because you're such a high flyer. Lee's discussing the future plans of Tim and Dawn. And
A really depressing plan as well.
Picture.
Also, because obviously the beginning of the scene is where Lee is describing how the rest of their life's going to pan out, and you can imagine like some people have got these amazing dreams, and this is kind of a link back to the lack of ambition of anybody in this office.
Yeah,
he sees the ideal future, living with his mum, Dawn getting a few kiddies out, and
Part-time
then his mum looking
cleaning
after
job.
them, and a part-time
cleaning
job as well.
job.
I mean, that's just so depressing. And then obviously Dawn makes a joke about it, as you said,
Living the
Tim
dreams.
laughs, and suddenly Lee takes offence.
All he has to do
But
is laugh.
I think the fact that Tim laughs, it's kind of like shows Tim would want so much more for Dawn than that. He believes in her so much more.
But
And then-
Tim's not exactly doing much to make his own situation better, is he?
No, he's not.
He's not.
That's why you want to give Tim a shake.
Yeah, exactly, because
he's frustrated by it.
he laughs at Lee, and he clearly looks down on Lee. Like, whether it's because he just feels intimidated by him because he's got Dawn, he's clearly he does see himself as a bit more like superior to Lee. But
I think so.
The things he laughs at that Lee's got planned, there's no reason why. There's nothing to say that Tim wouldn't go in that direction because he's not doing anything about it, is he?
He's not following his ambition.
He's laughing so
but
much
what
at
I
the
also
plans.
noticed with Lee there was he clearly stored that little mocking laugh from Tim and took his revenge towards the end of the episode with throwing a shoe over the pub.
And I think deep down inside, he knows that Dawn wants to be an illustrator. He knows that she probably doesn't like that little plan. So that's why he goes off like a rocket as soon as all he has to do is have a little laugh at something that Dawn's actually said. So it's Dawn. It's actually Dawn who's actually making fun of the plan.
We kind of touched on the whole the class issues and kind of Finchy being a working class character. I mean, Lee is also clearly, without wanting to generalise, he's obviously a working class character.
Yeah.
Everyone in, as Tim makes a joke about, I think it might even be in series 2, where he's giving a tour of the warehouse. The people in the warehouse are kind of generally the working class characters. Tim makes a joke about it himself. And so Lee, I mean, we don't really see much of these coffee breaks in the show, so we don't know if Tim comes up here every day. But Lee has made the effort to come up, from one class level in the warehouse to the next class level in the main office.
Upstairs, downstairs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It is
exactly,
a bit upstairs, downstairs, and he's made and kind of as a slight defensively, he's made the effort to come up there to try and get onto their level. And this is probably his worst nightmare, kind of being put down a little bit by this kind of snotty kind of university student lads.
We kind of goes back to that again.
Who laughs at his kind of humble kind of plans for Lee and Dawn.
It's interesting.
This really highlights how they follow a very cohesive theme throughout each episode of The Office. I'd never really noticed it before. They explore a definite theme.
Well, this is you only find out these things by hashing it out and talking about it for an hour.
And now we want to just jump to a quick word from our sponsors, because without them we would not be able to bring you this podcast for free. Here they are.
The Gardeners, a friendly, welcoming atmosphere for gatherings, parties and all the family. Come on down on Thursday night where you can get a pint of Courage Bitter straight from our local brewery and a choice of chicken and mushroom or steak and ale pie for only $8.95. We pride ourselves on award-winning pies that have been in the top 3 of the Slough Gazette Great Local Eats Award for 3 years running. So if you want a really good pie, it's the Gardeners, guys. Even if the best people don't show up, you're sure to have a great time with us.
Do you?
So now we've got the moment that we've all been waiting for, or rather that Finchy and Brent, I suppose, have been waiting for most of this episode, which is the quiz. So we're downstairs, I assume, in the office. I mean, it seems like we're still in the office, but it's like a bar.
It seems like it's like maybe a social club that's part of the office block.
Yesterday was the only time I picked up on the fact that, they're not at a separate pub. They're at some kind of rec room in the Wernham Blogg building. And I was thinking, is that normal for an office?
There is a bar there.
Yeah,
it's actually within Wernham Blogg.
There's some
is
kind
it?
of,
I always assumed they'd gone kind of on a little trip out for the night.
What, and then go back to the office to throw their shoes over the pub?
Yeah, no, you're right. They're inside the office because when they come out...
There's like some kind of rec room, I guess.
There must be, because there's a bar there as well.
There's a full bar there, which is quite unusual for an office. From the beginning, I think they were in a big office block with a lot of other offices, so that facility might be shared by all
But would that be
kinds of
allowed to have a bar, a working bar?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't agree with that.
If anyone listening has any suggestions on what it is,
someone get in touch or write on the comments. Yeah.
Can I have everyone's attention, please? Welcome to the 7th annual Wernham Blogg quiz night.
Part of this quiz, we have a couple of in fact, we have 3 talking heads on this one subject, which is about how important it is to win to David, Brent, and Finchy. And obviously, the one time that they didn't quite almost win was one where there was a bit of a discrepancy over the answer to a particular question, whether or not what type of alien is Mr. Spock. And back and forth, it turns out that this was a huge deal. I'd love to have seen it, by the way. I'd absolutely love to have, if they could have gone back with the cameras and shown us this, because he went home to get the book to prove. So imagine that, halfway through a quiz, he just cuts the whole thing short, goes home for an hour or so, however long it takes, I don't know where he lives, comes back with this book, and everybody else is just sat around in the working man's club waiting for him.
And then we have the crufts speech.
The crufts speech is amazing.
Just to finally say, why is it important? It's, a question about Mr. Spock.
Oh, can I enter this dog in the Labrador section? No. Why? Because it's not a Labrador. Correct. Can I enter in the Alsatian section? No, for the same reasons. Now get that dog out of my sight. And that's crufts.
I love how he thinks crufts is like the ultimate arbiter of fair play as well.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, if it's okay in crufts, it's okay in my office.
And that's crufts. Yeah. But again, it goes back to that thing of Brent has spent definitely the last 3 episodes, but definitely this last episode 3, defending what a great comedian he is and how he knows about comedy and how, he's a chilled out entertainer and he knows all about comedy and entertainment and keeping the troops happy. But when it comes to something like that, he's just so, pathetic and finicky. He just can't let it go. He's absolutely not this chilled out, funny entertainer he thinks he is.
Well, he's not right very often, so when he is, he has to make sure he rams it home.
Oh yeah, he hammers home the point when he's right. He's like,
exactly. Yeah, and we see it later on in the episode. Yeah, we're you're shit. You're shit.
There's a wonderful moment.
He's very competitive,
There's a wonderful moment.
Pride.
There's such a good moment just after this as well when he gets the phone call from his dad, and obviously we know his dad's in this care home, and I think this is the only other reference to him in the whole show. But his dad's going a bit crazy, calling out for him in the night, and Brent basically pretends that he's snowed under at work. But it doesn't stop him from cheating in the quiz. Because he asks the doctor who sung In the Summertime.
Who sang In the Summertime?
Mungo
It shows you just how preoccupied Brent is, just how much this means to him.
Yeah, exactly.
This quiz and this proving that him and Finchy are this dynamic duo.
Yeah.
It means everything to him. It's eclipsed everything else. It's eclipsed Tim's birthday. It's eclipsed his dad being in a care home. It's eclipsed absolutely everything.
Well, we realised through the course of the series, and this is probably the first indication of it, that above comedy, what he wants people to think about him as is this kind of sage, this kind of wise man of the world. So more than being a comedian, he wants people to think of him as being clever, which I guess goes back to, I haven't thought about this before, but it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about his hang-ups about maybe not having been to university.
Oh yeah, of course. If he can educate somebody on something, or enlighten them on something,
or prove that he's smart, just generally
he
prove
wants
that
someone
he's smart.
to say either you're a funny guy or my God, you're deep, David.
Yeah,
Do you know
exactly.
what I mean?
He wants to be everything, though. He wants to be suave. He wants to be funny. He wants to be a ladies' man. He wants to be a man of the
Yeah.
people.
He
He wants to be a philanthropist.
he does. He just wants.
Yeah, he wants to be Leonardo da Vinci.
And he's trying to be all those things.
He wants to do the
wants
ultimate and everything.
He wants,
and
he wants to be a Renaissance man, like
Yeah.
Da Vinci.
Yeah.
He wants to be the ultimate
Yeah.
and everything, and he's obviously not. And if he just kind of relaxed a little bit and focused on one thing, if he even just focused on being the best boss he could be, everything else would kind of fall into place. But he can't do it. He's just so desperate at all times, and it might be because
Again,
the
it's the
cameras are there.
crisis.
Yeah.
So the thing I love about
that
this
way.
quiz, the thing I love about this quiz is that obviously we start to see the titans of the teams, which are obviously Ricky and Vinci.
Yeah, that's what it
becoming
comes
uber
down
competitive,
to.
getting more and more competitive as it goes on. And I think this is one of the things I particularly love about this is that they're starting to act very drunk. But also Ricky, do you know what I mean? He's been quite sort of smooth and sort of
he's
learning
been
throughout the
reserved,
episode.
Keeping his head down,
exactly, and now he starts to get. I mean, whether it's Finchie that's obviously brought it out of him, but he starts to get really competitive. And when you realise like Finchie, and Finchie gets him on a technicality on this question, which is a real shame. But I think it almost just speaks to Finchie's character. He doesn't really know the answer. Thank God Ricky made that mistake of calling a spider an insect, otherwise he would have been embarrassed.
But I love that they did that though, because no one's ever just a complete hero or a winner in the office. Like even Ricky, is like he's the young, cool, generally likable new temp who you want to kind of get one over on Finchie. It doesn't quite work out that way.
So he doesn't quite get one over.
Yeah,
they'll never allow it.
No one's just an absolute hero. And by the end of the quiz, Ricky comes across as looking a little bit pathetic. He joins in with trying to take Tim's shoes off.
And you can see like Finchie is coming in. He's all he's all like the charismatic guy that makes everyone laugh, and that just totally goes as he starts losing the quiz. He loses his cool, and he just becomes arsey, difficult.
And this is when you see the nasty side of him as well. When he starts,
when you see how genuinely nasty he is,
which comes to a head, when he's on the stage to do the tiebreaker.
Absolutely. The tiebreaker's brilliant.
And he turns on Gareth,
and he crumbles.
Scrambling for
Well, the funny thing about that tiebreaker is, as soon as when he's doing the reveal and he's sort of working out the teams, and obviously it's Malcolm and Dennis, which is a weird combo, but upstairs downstairs situation. Anyway, so Malcolm and Dennis are. Well, yeah, it's a good question. I have no idea. I mean, I imagine they've both been there for years.
I reckon they probably just signed up both to do the quiz.
Yeah.
Dennis's warehouse mates have gone, can't bother to go there. I doubt Taffy's at the quiz.
Taffy wouldn't be at the quiz.
Malcolm hasn't got a teammate because he's an arsehole people hate. And then, so he has to go with Dennis.
Oh no, I imagine they're friends. I imagine Malcolm and Dennis have been friends for a long time, and we don't really see much of Dennis other than I think so. I mean, they're both they're quite friendly when they shake hands when they often finish third or fourth or whatever it is.
Speaking of Dennis, which we'll probably never get an opportunity to do again, have you guys ever seen The Big Train?
No,
I saw
Big Train.
It's a sketch of Simon Pegg.
Okay.
There's a sketch of that. It's bizarre. It was kind of a bit of a surreal sketch show. There's this bizarre sketch in it where it's a man's working like the day in the life of this guy, just kind of following and going to work and stuff.
Okay.
It's narrated by a little child who's saying, "My name's Tim. I'm 40 years old. I go to work. Blah blah." Dennis, the guy who plays this old little chubby old guy who plays Dennis, plays this guy. And he gets up out of bed in the morning of the sketch, and he's completely stark bollock naked.
What, Dennis?
Dennis, the guy who plays Dennis in the office. In The Big Train, you see him naked. You see everything.
Wow. We'll pop a link to that on this podcast.
So every time I see in episode 2 when you see him laughing at shagging the dog, I was like, is that the old naked guy from Big Train? And then in this again, it's just so bizarre to see Dennis.
So if you're listening to this now, if you click on the left-hand side of the podcast next to links, we'll put a picture of Dennis stark bollock naked. So you'll enjoy that.
Or try and find a sketch on YouTube.
See if we can find one of Malcolm as well.
Yeah. Oh God.
There's nothing funny about it.
Now, the big point is that it comes down to a tiebreaker, and Gareth looks like he's more excited than he's ever been when he's announcing his tiebreaker. Like, it's the most exciting thing that's ever happened to him.
So then, obviously, Finchie and Brent end up losing, and that's when Finchie just turns on Brent instantly.
Finchie's just so pissed off with Brent. Crucifies David. It's all his fault.
Absolutely. It's no wonder this place is going down your plan. You're a waste of bloody space.
Yeah, properly lays into it. It gets really personal. Harsh. Yeah. And then Dawn goes back to that kind of mothering role from episode 1.
Correct.
Like, all right, leave him alone. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, which shows that Dawn does have some affection for Brent. Because we want to see him getting mistreated.
Because since the end of episode 1, we got a lot more than I remember in episode 1 of interplay between Brent and Dawn, and we said in episode 1 it's almost like a kind of mother-son relationship. That didn't really reoccur in episode 2, but it comes back here in this.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it shows that Dawn's quite an empathic character. She cares about people and she's sensitive to their feelings. more so than a lot of characters.
Well, I think
which is why she's such a mismatch with Lee. He's completely unempathic. And,
I mean, I think she would have done that if she'd seen Brent doing it to Gareth. It's just that she doesn't want to see someone get
she doesn't want people. It's not specifically because it's Brent.
Even though Brent's done these horrible things to her, like that practical joke in the first episode and all that kind of stuff, she's the only one that comes to his defence.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that speaks volumes. The fact that maybe it's just that she's the sort of maternal character.
And it's the female presence as well. It's all around it, and this is a theme that comes up a lot in Gervais and Merchant's work. There's just a bunch of lads, lots of testosterone, and Dawn. I don't think Donna's there, so it's just Dawn is the only kind of female presence there to just go, all right, everyone, just calm down. It's getting silly now.
There's a huge theme of rivalries in this episode because Lee and Tim's rivalry comes to the fore again there, and Lee uses it as a very subtle way to undermine because everyone's caught up in the absurdity of this throwing a shoe over the pub. So no one's really noticed that Lee is undermining Tim massively.
Well, yeah, and the catalyst for all of this is when Dawn actually stands up for David and says, just because they beat you, and if she hadn't said that last bit...
they beat me.
Yeah, they beat me. I could list you 100 things I could beat them at. Like what? Throwing. And they all just have a little laugh. And again, I think it's partly because they're pissed.
Dawn kind of goes, throwing. You are ridiculous.
Finchy, the only way he can save face is to show a test of strength. Like, intellect's gone out the window. He lost the battle of wits and intellect to the college boy. So he has to just rely on...
It's his last resort.
He has to rely on his last resort, which is that, right, I'm definitely stronger than him.
And Gareth joins in, ganging up on Ricky, doesn't he? He goes, he's thrown a kettle over a pub. What have you ever done?
Yeah, that's the thing. But the teams split, don't they? Yeah. Like, you can see exactly who's allied with who. Yeah. It's Brent and Finchy and Gareth. They're like the little Weasley, little wormy boys. And then there's
Tim, Dawn,
Ricky and Tim and Dawn. Yeah. But, I mean, they're equally as bad, kind of, when it comes down to it.
Absolutely. I mean, they take the piss out of them for proposing this challenge, but why do they take them up on it? I don't understand. Is it just to indulge them?
Because they just don't care.
They don't know. They know they've won the quiz.
Yeah,
they know it isn't.
They know everyone
They're
else
a bunch of sad little men.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. Fair play to Ricky. I mean, to calling him on it and to calling David a sad little man, as well as Finchy.
He's his boss.
Yeah, but he calls David and Finchy sad little men. And Gareth only defends Finchy. So basically it's saying, David is a sad little man.
But imagine the next day when Ricky has to go into the office and he's completely hungover. He'll just go back to head down, being nice and polite, won't he? Because he got brought out of him because he got competitive and drunk. I mean, it's kind of...
And that's the thing about him not being
I can see myself in that. He would... In the cold light of day, when he's in the office, he'll be deferential to Brent. He'll keep his head down. He'll be nice and polite. But when it got down to it, when he showed what he would be like around his mates, which is just more kind of a bit more confident and a bit more outgoing.
But still, so they obviously know that this isn't the real quiz, but they decide to take them up on the offer of this challenge anyway. But then obviously Lee gets involved. Whether this is a sort of lingering resentment from earlier on in the
I think it is.
I think it is a little bit.
So he grabs him. And he says, let's do the birthday boy, What a prick. And anyway, so then they pull him down, they take his shoes off, and Finchy goes outside, throws Tim's shoe over the building. Poor bastard, it's his birthday. And Tim's left without a shoe.
And again, so Finchy wins. Again, there's no Finchy's going to get his comeuppance. He's not going to do it. Ricky's going to win. No, they called Finchy's bluff. They said he won't be able to do it, and he does it. And it's like, okay, well... Who wins?
So now officially
no one's a winner.
Well, exactly.
They all lose.
They all lose, and the person who loses the most is Tim, who's his 30th birthday.
Yeah, I was going to say. And so that's what I like about it, and it brings it back to Tim, and so you kind of just get this lingering kind of shot of Tim just on his own. Everyone leaves. Dawn goes up to Tim and says, "Do you want some help?" Lee straight away is just come on, let's go. But so we're left with just the episode ends with just Tim on his own having to skulk and get...
No, it doesn't. It ends with him walking down the street and then Gareth coming in with the inflatable cock.
He tries to kick it over.
And then looks around and then runs off, dashes off like a 5-year-old.
That's a brilliant.
Tim's just left without any shoes on, having to walk around the corner. He's got Hat FM on and he's just left it. Yeah, like we said at the beginning of the episode, he starts off... He's kind of a bit dismissive of Hat FM, and in the end, that's the one good thing that's happened to him all day. He's got...
One thing I noticed as well was when they say someone go round and check who it is, straight away Sheila nominates herself. She's really at the bottom of the food chain. Hog, isn't she? She's totally subjugated by the company, and she's just
it came right past me.
So I mean,
past me.
Should she not have picked it up and brought it back round to Tim?
Well, she probably does. I bet they meet in the middle.
Yeah,
I bet they meet
probably.
around the corner. And then Tim just has to walk off with Hat FM. Did you have Hat FM?
That's a new level of analysis right there. I wonder if Sheila and Tim met halfway.
In the reality of the show.
Perhaps we're going into too much detail here.
Remember, learn.
If The Office is about anything, it's about people trying to fill that. I don't call it, a great psychologist called Viktor Frankl called it the existential vacuum, which is this big empty space that a lot of people in our modern culture feel, and I guess would then, where, you know, what is your meaning in life? And you fill it with really meaningless stuff, be it being a great comedy duo, be it romance, be it machoism, be it competitiveness, some kind of greater purpose.
Yeah, and how
transcend the mundanity of their sort of day-to-day lives.
And how when you reach that 30-year-old precipice, which Tim's at, you realise I've got to do that soon, or I'm never going to. I'm going to end up like Brent because he didn't, and now look at him. Yeah.
So there's a lot of themes in The Office, I think, which I never picked up on the first time round, of sort of existential frustration. That's where these characters, they're yearning for more in their lives. You know, if you look at any office in the country, you'll meet characters who want more from their lives than what they're currently presented with. So there's a kind of sadness in there too, right? In a way.
Well, it's interesting, yeah, because
In a way.
I'm sure.
In a way.
I'm sure that when it first came out, lots of people picked up on that kind of thing, but us being, 15, 16...
I was 15, I
yeah,
didn't pick up
exactly.
on it, yeah.
We watched it, and we really liked it. We saw the funny characters, we were like, oh, that awkward moment, that's probably a bit like... I can relate to that from when I was when I'm at school.
Yeah.
You don't really understand the deeper side of it, the kind of... the Tim being at a crossroads in his life, the Brent looking back and kind of like with regrets or kind of with frustrations and seeing the last chance to do something with himself. You don't really appreciate that until you get a bit older and you've been through those kinds of things yourself, or until you've seen that in life. So it's one of those. That's the genius of it, is that after 2 viewings, after 50 viewings, after 17 years of viewings, it still rewards this look back and this analysis, which kind of like, because it's got so much going on underneath the surface.
Well,
and I think they've deliberately left a lot of stuff open to interpretation, which gives us a great in to sort of laboriously discuss it, you know what I mean?
I was saying, you say you didn't get it. I understood it perfectly when I was 17, but I was a very depressed teenager, so different story there, I guess. I just thought...
A little insight into Danny's own existential crisis.
I hope I don't end up like Tim.
Or like Kelvin.
But I didn't. I ended up like David.
So. Or like Kelvin, yeah.
Like Kelvin, yeah.
No apologies necessarily. Let's get on with the quiz.
So, quiz? Quiz on the quiz?
Definitely quiz on the quiz. Yeah.
Quiz on the
quiz.
Here we go.
Now, this week, the quiz, everyone, it's an extra long quiz, but I'm going to make it short because I'm going to be going quick fire, so
Whoa, hang on.
Are you getting it down? Because, you're not doing shorthand, I'm going to be... and in fact, who's going to keep score? So I keep score.
Yeah, you've got to keep score. We're doing it, Danny.
Yeah.
So let's start again with the introduction of the quiz.
Okay, right. Jack, can I hear your buzzer?
Now get that dog out of my sight.
Okay. James, can I hear your buzzer?
It's difficult to tell with the wheelchair ones.
Okay. Seth, can I hear your buzzer?
Look at his ears.
Okay, question number 1.
And if you want to play along at home, then just get a pen and paper out.
You've got to be quick though.
Okay, question number 1.
Easy,
You've got to be quick. Okay, for 2 points, whose work does Tim love?
Now get that dog out of my sight. With the wheelchair ones.
I heard get that dog out of my sight.
Go on. Okay, right, James.
No, I'm not the dog. You're the dog.
Okay,
Who's the
okay,
dog?
yeah.
Oh, I'm dog.
Yes,
Okay. Alan Delon.
Alan Delon, and who else?
Marcel Proust.
That's 2 points to Jack. Question number 2. How many years in a row has Brenton Finch won?
Now get that dog out of my sight.
I know James was trying to
James,
press
you
desperately.
were James.
6 years.
6 years, correct. Okay, question number 3. What's Ricky's favourite work by Dostoevsky?
Now get that dog out of my sight. Wheelchair ones.
House of Dead.
No.
Raw Youth.
The Raw Youth.
It was the Raw Youth, James. I heard it from James first.
I'm getting stitched up here. No one can hear my buzzer.
Yeah. Okay, this is for... we'll make it for 3 points.
Ooh.
1 for each team.
Goes along, isn't he?
So, which 3 teams do not get a point over in the Mr. Spot fiasco?
Get that dog out of my sight. Look at his ears.
Okay, I heard everyone there.
That was
to be
James.
fair.
James was first.
Okay.
Alright, Carpet Munchers don't get a point.
Yep.
Dr. Wankenstein doesn't get a point.
Yep.
And Stephen Hawking's football boots don't get a point.
Correct.
Oh. So I'm
Okay.
just going to cane it this week.
That shouldn't be worth 3 points, to be fair. That's too easy.
No.
I'll have it, nonetheless.
1 point.
That was the easiest
No,
one yet.
he said 3
Okay,
points.
said
right, he
3
said
points.
3 points. All right.
Okay, right.
I said 3 points. All right.
Danny, I thought this was going to be quick fire.
Yeah,
Come on.
because I'm getting a bit...
Right, we're going to make this a 2-pointer.
All right.
Just make it up as he goes on.
Who wrote the song 19?
Get that dog out of my sight.
Paul Hardcastle.
Paul Hardcastle.
Yeah!
Come on, I buzzed first. I'm getting stitched up.
Okay,
get-
we'll give that to you, Seth.
Yeah,
2
let's-
points
Why
to
are you giving
Seth.
it to him? He didn't even
Because
answer
Seth
it.
needs a point.
Because Seth needs points, and he's getting
pity
stitched
points.
up
Is
here.
that the name of the game now? Pity points?
Question number 6. Which canal links the Mediterranean with the Red Sea?
Now get that dog out of my sight.
Suez Canal.
Yeah, correct. The Suez Canal. Question number 7. This is quite a difficult one. So again, I'll make it 2 points. Who does Ricky confuse Howard Jones with?
Now get that dog out of my sight.
with the wheelchair ones.
I heard the dog first.
Oh, I looked him up yesterday because I wanted to know who he was. Oh, James,
I know.
Go for it.
Nick Kershaw.
I
yeah.
buzzed in. You can't just bite it like that.
That's
That's
James.
outrageous.
That's James.
Don't worry. Fuck it.
I don't know. I don't even know that
Come on,
James
Danny.
knew though.
Pull your finger out, son.
Okay, right, okay. We've got 3 questions to go. They're all going
Rolling
to be
around in
1
the
pointers
grass.
because they're quite easy. Who had a hit with "Don't Speak"?
Now get that dog out of my sight.
This time I can hear everyone.
Go on, Danny. Make a decision then.
Seth?
No doubt.
No doubt. Yeah. Right. Okay. Next question. Who did
No
David?
doubt about that.
Which question?
Sorry.
Who did David Brent say had a hit with "Don't
Now
Speak"?
get that dog out of my sight.
Wheelchair
Corn on
ones.
Blondes.
Fall on Blondes.
Yeah.
Correct, Jack. Everyone knows these ones.
Yeah.
Question number 12. Now, very sad. Well, I'm not going to say anything actually. Who finished 3rd in the quiz?
Now get that dog out of my sight.
Malcolm and Dennis.
Malcolm and Dennis, yes. So, okay,
Well
we have
scores.
4 points for Seth, 5 points for Jack, no, 5 points for James.
Ooh, we got a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Tiebreaker
This
situation.
is a crucial conundrum.
Yeah, yeah.
right
It's
now.
not going to be the tiebreaker, is it?
Yeah, we're going to have, well...
It's only a tiebreaker if one of us. Yeah, because it's not yet necessary.
Jack, can you throw a kettle over James's house?
Right. Closest person to the year gets it, right? In what year did Dostoevsky's House of the Dead come out?
Can we get? When
He
did he die?
lived from 1821 to 81, but
Right.
when did he write House of the Dead? Both write it down. And send
I've got
it
this
to-
date in my head for some reason, so it must be.
Right, okay. Okay, I've seen Jack's date, and I've seen James's. Oh, Jack wins, because James puts 1841, Jack puts 1863, it was actually 1862.
I knew I had 1860 something on
That
my
is
head.
the
Here we go,
real
Jack
quiz.
wins, finally.
That's a hard
And that's the
question,
real
man.
quiz.
Yeah, it is.
Well done, Jack.
Yeah.
Who won last week?
I think we've each won one, haven't we?
Have we really?
Well,
this
one
is-
each, yeah.
We're on
You
a level
won-
pegging.
I won the
You-
first
you
one.
won the
Do you
first
want
one.
me
won
to
the second
keep
one.
tournament score then?
All in
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
of
should do
course.
it,
Hell
shall
yeah.
we? At last.
So, yeah. Okay.
Okay,
So,
so
that's 1-1.
so everybody's got
One
one.
all.
Everybody's got one win so far. So that means I suppose it's going to be the tiebreaker is the training episode,
Yeah.
which is
I
good
guess
because I think
so.
that's one of those episodes that's universally agreed is one of the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how, yeah.
I think it's generally considered the best.
Yeah.
And it was, of course, the winner of our Office UK Greatest Quotes.
Yes,
Greatest
it was.
episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if,
Oh,
you're, not,
yeah,
if
yeah.
you've not been involved in that or you're not seeing the groups, we put out a kind of a World Cup style knockout tournament for all of the episodes in chronological order, basically against one another, right through to the end. And absolutely, training just stormed it, didn't it? It just pissed
Oh,
everything
it's
off.
smashing
But
out
there were no
finals.
Christmas specials. The
Yeah,
Christmas
that's true.
specials
No,
were made
I
I think
that's
I
true.
think training still would have won. I remember when you put up that bracket, and I think the second round was quiz versus training, and I remember saying to you on Facebook, whichever episode wins this will win the whole thing because they're both like just nailed on classics, aren't they?
Training and the quiz.
Because they're
two of
kind
the
of
best.
because they are, as we said at the beginning of this episode, they're standalone episodes. Really. You can say, oh, that's that one. That's the one where they have the pub quiz. That's the one where they have the training day. Like with New Girl and with the pilot, you could say, oh, that's that one. I mean, you could say that's the one where Gareth does his investigation, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's not like the plot of the episode.
They're more standalone episodes.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Plus, they're both two episodes where they take them out of their natural environment,
Yeah,
as well, which
yeah,
is always
yeah.
fun, and that's
Yeah.
why the Christmas specials are so good as well. You know, I mean, everybody loves an Emmerdale episode where they go to Spain.
I mean, they do go to Florida for a scene, but they could have done more with
Yeah,
that.
briefly.
And-
I like
and-
Only Fools and Horses when they went to Margate. That was good.
Or one,
Yeah, I love that episode.
or the classic
Yeah.
one for me is One Foot in the Algarve, which when I was a kid,
God's
when I was a kid, that was the only episode of One Foot in the Grave I'd ever seen. So
it's
I
true,
thought,
though.
oh, we're always in the Algarve, all right.
Yeah.
They are always a good episode, though. You're right. This is sort of a trend in sitcoms. Like, if you remember Behaving Badly when they went down to the beach and stole that big fish.
Yeah.
Bottom when they go out to go camping for the night, and like Young Ones they go to the pub. They're always sort of quite iconic episodes that stand out from the
Yeah,
rest.
but the ones that are kind of just like they're called, in
But
the
they only,
in the
but
industry
they only
they're called
work
bottle
because they're-
episodes.
they only work because they're rooted in a very specific environment 99% of the time.
Yeah.
So they only work as a contrast to where do you know what I mean? They stand out because they're unique. Because normally they're in this office all the time.
And they're usually accompanied by a one-off character that you don't often see again.
Yeah, yeah.
Like Rowan
Yeah.
in the training episode. I mean, we'll come on to this.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about that. But yeah.
But it's fun to see now, but watching it in chronological order, and as I've been trying to do when I've been watching the episodes back for this podcast, watching them in chronological order, trying to just put everything else out of my mind. So I'm just trying to imagine what it'd be like to watch it for the first time. We're on the ground now. We're running. We've really kind of at the end of episode 3, all the character dynamics are there. I know exactly what to expect. I know what kind of humour to expect. We've had some classic quotes. You know, it's just you would know at the end of episode 3 whether this is the show for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've all agreed it's a show for us, the ultimate show for us. Like this is.
Yeah.
I mean, by the end of episode 3, when I was watching it on TV, I knew this is gonna be a classic sitcom because it was just everything was there. It was all in place. We're only 3 episodes in.
That is a classic.
Which is actually a quarter of the way through the whole run. Out of 12
That's
episodes.
True, not including Christmas specials. But
Thinking about how it really hits home how short English series are, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where, we're 3 episodes in.
God, it feels like we've only just started.
And imagine how many did the UK one, the US one got?
Oh, hundreds.
That was like 9 series, wasn't it?
We're not doing this for the American office.
No
way.
Maybe at some point we'll do a comparison, just a one-off comparison episode.
Yeah.
Maybe between series 1 and 2, maybe we could do an episode where we compare the UK to the US.
Absolutely. So in fact, we've been talking about this actually because obviously we're really enjoying doing this, but we're very conscious that obviously we're already a quarter of the way through, so we've only got another 9 more episodes really to do, with the exception of the Christmas specials. So we want to do a few specials, and I think Jack just mentioned there that we want to do one where we compare the 2 American versus the UK,
just as a one-off episode,
as a one-off special. And we wanted to try and get some feedback from you guys, the audience. Just let us know some of the topics that you'd maybe like to hear us talk about, and actually any other ideas for some specials. Email them in, send us the messages on Facebook, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, what would you like to hear? Start getting. Now that we're recording as the episodes are going up, we can start interacting. We can start getting involved.
Yeah,
so,
and just as a message on that, obviously this is the first episode we've recorded since we've released our first episode. So I want to say a big thank you to everybody that's downloaded and listened to us so far, because the feedback we've had so far has been absolutely amazing. So by the time you hear this, we'll probably be on episode 5. So if you want us to talk about anything in particular for the last couple of episodes, drop us a message or anything like that. Maybe some quiz questions for Danny, because obviously these today were ridiculously hard. Big thank you to everybody that's listened, and we hope you enjoy the next episode and obviously this one. And if you haven't already, just like our page. It's Wernham Blogg. You can find us on Facebook. We're also at Wernham Blogg on Twitter. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe the podcast wherever you happen to be listening to it. What else do people normally say at the end of podcasts?
I think there's been a rate up there.
Boring, isn't it? Fans with no testicles.